When did that interest in art start? I mean, that's a lot of hats to wear. Like, why are you spreading yourself so? Because I find a similarity in me because I'm never only working on one piece of art. Why are you spreading yourself so thin?
I don't really consider doing all those things spreading myself thin. It's all in the same vein. It's all about the arts, and all of it needs to be done. Spreading yourself thin feels like you're doing too much. I just get up one day and I got to do this. I get up another day I got to do this. I get up another day I got to do this. So it's all very homogeneous. So it doesn't really feel like I'm doing different things. Like my art book, my poetry books have my paintings in them. So it's all the same thing to me. My life in the arts is across the board, so it's fine.
When did that start?
I started being an artist. Well, there's a couple of start dates. The first start date was when I was a kid. My mother, who was an amateur painter, would bring home art materials, and I would, she would paint with me, and I'd do comic book art and this, that, and the other. Then it started in my mid-20s, and then it really started in my mid-30s when I quit my job and decided to be an artist full-time. So you got a couple of start dates on there, and I guess one is as a child just doing art like many children do. The other one is, when I really decided I enjoyed this and wanted to do this as a thing. And then the third one is when I convinced myself I could do it as a living.
Take me back to them earlier days when you first started experimenting with art because your mom was an artist. Did she just come in the room and say paint, or were you curious?
Well, I read a lot of comic books, and I still read a lot of comic books, and so I would draw the comic book characters. And most kids pick up a pencil or something to draw. I don't think kids really need somebody to push them to do something creative visually. Kids draw comics, little kids draw pictures of it, whatever they want to draw. My mother, being an amateur painter, started bringing me home art supplies. And so then I would draw and I would paint them and this, that, and the other. And she would teach me and give me instruction on how to do it. So, it wasn't forced upon me. It wasn't like you be a painter or anything. She just helped me along a path that I was interested in.
Okay. What was going on at that time around you?
The civil rights movement. My father was a civil rights activist, and I used to go out with him on demonstrations, on picket lines. I watched him, protest, lay down in front of trucks and other things, and to stop work at certain construction sites that didn't have black workers. I saw him go off to the March on Washington. So a lot of things were going on in the country that were very informative, but also volatile. And so there was a lot going on in the early 60s that fueled my creativity and fueled my thought processes.
And what's going on in the neighborhood?
In the neighborhood? Nothing. Kid stuff. If we're talking about that period of time before we moved to Hollis, I lived in Jamaica by a housing development called Rochdale Village. Most of Jamaica over that way was not yet developed. So there was a lot of woods. And so me and my homeboys would build tree houses, we built underground forts, there were rabbits, and there was some other kind of wild creatures we go catching those. There was we spent our childhood growing up like we grew up, like people would grow up down south, basically out in Queens. It was woods, and that's where we spent our childhood, playing in the woods. And then we'd raid people. People had fruit trees in their backyards, so we go raid old Mr. So-and-so's apple tree, or so-and-so's peach tree, so-and-so's grapevine. They knew we were coming, because this is what it was about. People even in Jamaica, Queens had chickens, dude. Because these people, it was the first generation of people coming from down south. And so some families was country than others. And some families had some chickens. And roosters. So you hear some roosters in the morning. And so Jamaica, Queens was a lower middle class to middle class black neighborhood with a lot of people families that would, you know, when you talk about the black family, all this myth about the black family being, you know, not there. There was a generation or two where drugs just hurt the black family, but not all the way across the board. And so, you know, people picked up on that myth that the black father isn't there or the mother's this, that, and the other. That was because of the wave of drugs that hit in the late 60s, then toppled by the crack epidemic. And so that put a hurting on urban black families. But, you know, everybody I knew had a mother or father. And everybody's father worked, and everybody's mother worked. And, you know, we go over each other's houses. So, you know, that thing about black families not being together, we had a homogeneous neighborhood where I needed his house, he needed my house. We'd all hang out. We could stay at each other's house. You know, it was a family, it was a neighborhood, and, you know, we grew up together. We played in the streets. We played as late as we want because nobody was worried about anything because the neighborhood looked out for each other. And, you know, I admit it was a different time than